Hello my friends, we have some updates coming from the Russian town of Shebekino, which is very close to Ukrainian border. Yesterday there was lots of the explosion plus assault started from the Russian opposition army. For today the offensive on Shebekino continued. Locals reported that they spot the Russian opposition volunteer army or something like that very close to that road in the forest. And based on some videos and footages, those troops are really fighting in that area. However, they still cannot reach Shebekino because Russia sent some reinforcements to that place. Not a lot of the forces were sent because most of the Russian army is now in Ukraine. So there were some of the tanks, and some of the tanks, also confirmed by the drone footages, were demolished in that area. Most of the civilians evacuated from Shebekino town, and still there are many of the explosions. For today, there were around 850 explosions recorded. Shebekino is not far away from the Ukrainian border, it's around 8 kilometers. So there is the confirmation of the fighting which is ongoing very close to Shebekino, and I would say this time Russia is more prepared for the assault from the Ukrainian border, but the assaulting forces are using the different tactics compared to the previous assaults, so they use the long-range weaponry. This is the drone footage from Shebekino, and you can see on single image there are some of the fires and the huge one with that black smoke and several around that area. Also over here, I wonder if you can see it very close to my picture, and also over there. So there are lots of the explosions. And it was the big one again in Berdyansk port. Probably Ukraine continued to use the Storm Shadow rockets. This is the main supply hub for Russia, which is located just at the Black Sea. You can see that this is definitely the port of Berdyansk, and there is the big cloud. There was the drone attack on the military part of the international airfield, which is located close to Kursk. And as it was reported, several vehicles of Russian Federation, the military vehicles, were damaged, as well as some of the Su-34 bombers. We have a very low quality video, so probably there is the cloud over there with the smoke, but I cannot see definitely what is happening out there. But it was the loud bang which was confirmed by the CCTV camera recording. So you see what Ukrainian army is doing nowadays. They cut supply hubs for Russia, for example in Berdyansk. Also it was cut in Luhansk before, and there were several false flag, let's say, operations towards the Russian territory. It all creates the destabilization within the Russian military command. Also it lowers the morale of the Russian soldiers. The Russian supply lines are not really good themselves, and if they go disturbed by the bombshells, it would be a disaster for them. So now they think to withdraw the forces, the power of the forces from Ukraine to secure the Belgorod region or maybe Kursk, because they have to react on that, even though officials in Russia say that their army will be left in Ukraine on their previous positions. But in that case, the Russian volunteers or Russian freedom fighters will go and take more land. It's logical. In that case, Russia have to react. Unlike Russia, Ukrainian army has outstanding supply lines and communication. And speaking about communication, we have some awesome news. Starlink signed the agreement with Pentagon to supply Starlinks for Ukrainian army, so the big contract was signed. Also, the secure connection was guaranteed. Probably you heard the drama around the Starlink before. The signal was quite bad sometimes, and it was not working in some of the areas. And I got this information from the ground news resource. I use it for 4 months already, and this resource is outstanding. Basically, it collects the information from all around media resources. You can see the bias distribution for particular news about, for example, SpaceX, all of the agencies that reported that important information. I use it all the time to check the particular information because some news are based on facts and some news are based just on some rumors. And here you can see that 0% of the sources are low factuality. It means that this information is correct. And on the left here you can see the brief information, and you may just click on the news itself. In the article itself you may find more information that this effort may cost up to $20 million per month to maintain. However, Pentagon says that they will not tell lots of the information about the contract because it's very important for the national security and also security of Ukraine. Here also you may find that Russia tried to cut off or jam the internet services in Ukraine, including attempts to block the Starlink, but they were unsuccessful. I want to say that around 1 year ago, summer 2022, Elon Musk came out with the idea to sign the agreement or contract with Pentagon, because as the private company they don't want to be involved directly into the conflict, let's say. I'm quite experienced with that stuff because actually I am helping some people in Ukraine with the internet connection using the Starlink. Based on the feedback from the volunteers in Ukraine, they hadn't got any significant issues with the Starlink. However, there were some of the problems with initialization of the Starlink. If you move somewhere, it might have taken some time to find the satellites and provide the signals. Even though there are 4,000 satellites of the Starlink flying around the Earth, it's not enough to provide the required capacity for all of the clients, especially if they're concentrated at some specific spot. That's why Starlink starts to restrict the clients. If you want to move your antenna somewhere, you have to pay more. If you want to have the prioritized signal, you also have to pay more. If you want to have the connection over the water service, you need to pay more. So now I'm very satisfied with that contract between Starlink and Pentagon, because Pentagon is now a mediator between Ukraine and Starlink. They will ensure that the Starlink will work fine for Ukrainian army and Ukrainian volunteers or Ukrainian people, because it's crucial to have the good internet connection elsewhere. Russia doesn't have those services and it's their weak spot. So again, I'm collecting the most part of my information on the ground news service, and this was very helpful. The ground news platform is not just available on the website, they have very friendly application on any mobile device, so you may just go to Apple Store or Google Play and download it. It will help you to stay in touch with the latest interesting news. And if I put in a search Ukraine war, I can click on the first topic and I'll have the latest news about the situation in Ukraine. We have the top news, we have the blind spots that I could have probably missed, and the latest stories. So you may sign up for free or subscribe for this platform, the ground news, to have the full access for their data. They run a special offer right now, so you can subscribe getting 30% of discount. It's around $5 per month, but with all of that data that you'll have, I think it's worth it. And I do recommend this offer because first of all, it's the great discount and it's time limited. And the second thing, that it is the independent resource created by the group of enthusiasts who do a fantastic job by providing the proper information for the clients. Please check out the video description just below where you can find my personal link for the ground news subscription. Yes, they are the sponsors of my channel, but this resource is fantastic. The new Ukrainian infantry vehicles, Bradleys, were spotted on the south part of Ukraine, as well as some of the Leopard 2 tanks, so maybe we're getting ready for something. I have been speaking like that for already 1 month, right? That the counteroffensive is going to start very soon, but now we have the signs or the factors that may increase the counteroffensive of Ukraine, and let me tell you about the main factor. First of all, to start the counteroffensive, Ukraine needs to demine its own mines near to the front lines. I cannot tell you all of the information about the particular spot, but it seems like that job will be done very soon. To demine the fields, Ukraine will use the special Leopard 2 tank modification, and also we have the Soviet-made demining systems. The Washington Post says that the White House is now more flexible in providing the new military help to Ukraine. The White House understood that Putin was bluffing about the nukes and he simply has nothing to respond. That's why Ukraine will have the fighter jets and also long-range missiles. And that's why Putin will lose this war. The UK Minister of Defense Ben Wallace is very optimistic about the future Ukrainian offensive. He says that this year probably Ukraine may liberate Crimea. He says that Russia may announce the new mobilization into the army, but by sending the young men to die will not solve the problem, because basically they're out of their armored vehicles and other resources. So that's the difference between Russian military and the Ukrainian one. Russia uses the mid waves. Ukrainian army uses the very precise weaponry that was given to us by our Western allies that helps us to minimize the casualties. The only advantage Russia has over Ukraine is their modern-day aviation. They have Sukhoi Su-35s, Sukhoi Su-34s that are way better compared to Ukrainian MiG-29s. So F-16s will obviously help us, but still Su-35 is even better than F-16. It may spot F-16 further away because it has the most powerful radar from all of the fighter jets. Also, it carries the long-range rockets, so it's not that easy for us to conquer the Russian aviation. Recently, Russia received 2 more Sukhoi Su-34 airplanes. It is not really a fighter jet, it's the bomber. It's much easier to get rid of this one compared to Su-35. That's why F-16s will help, but based on our practice, Sukhoi's Su-35s also were shot down by Ukrainian air defense. And those are the last airplanes that Russia is able to produce because for their production they need to have the Western-made parts, which were cancelled because of the sanctions. So they use the parts of electronics that they still have in their storages, but it's not a lot. Yesterday there was the conflict and it's still ongoing between Prigozhin and Wagner command and between Chechen leaders. Prigozhin has the questions about the effectiveness of the Kadyrov forces. So Kadyrov's friends became very angry on Prigozhin. They started to record the video, but got very firm response from the leader of Wagner, who is not the Prigozhin. Apparently, his name or surname is Utkin. His nickname is Wagner, that is why this is the Wagner army. You'll not find lots of the information about Utkin, but he was the special force commander during the war between Russia and Chechnya. 2 wars actually, and he mentioned it in his response. So Kadyrovites and Wagner management, they all know each other very well. They were enemies before. So today something interesting happened. Prigozhin announced that they withdrew 99% of all of their forces from the Bakhmut. The Ukrainian army was quite okay with that and they didn't fire to Wagner positions by the time they start the withdrawal until they finish it. But then the Wagner soldiers left the Bakhmut and they used several roads to go to Russia. Those roads were mined by the Russian regular army. Prigozhin said that the Russian regular army forces got the order from above to mine the roads against Wagner. Prigozhin said that their intelligence worked quite well and they demined the roads themselves and there were no any casualties. He says that probably someone from the Russian military command wanted to punish them. From what I see, that Putin is not really okay with Prigozhin and Kadyrov's place in favor of the regular Russian army command. The Russian FSB is more neutral in this conflict, however, they just hate Kadyrov, so maybe they will support Prigozhin. Actually, I didn't expect those conflicts to happen in Russia that fast. I expect that Russia will boil for several years during this war, but here we're very close to the hot war actually. For Prigozhin and for the Wagner military command, it's go-no-go situation, I think, as well as for Shoigu. Someone has to win it and someone has to lose. I personally expect that Prigozhin will win this conflict. Whether Putin will stay in power in that case, well, if Putin supports Kadyrov and if it was his idea to try to scare Prigozhin with Kadyrov, I don't think that Prigozhin will leave Putin on his throne. Yes, this is like a Game of Thrones in real life. Russia has many clans and now they start to eat themselves. For Ukraine, this situation is awesome. Anthony Blinken about the second army in the world.
The Kremlin often claimed it had the second strongest military in the world, and many believed it. Today, many see Russia's military as the second strongest in Ukraine. Its equipment, technology, leadership, troops, strategy, tactics, and morale a case study in failure.
Indeed, it's like that. Everyone thought that Russia is a truly mighty power because they show their army on the military parades, and everyone knows that they have lots of the planes and lots of the nukes. But now they cannot use the nukes because they will have the response from the allies. They cannot use their aviation because all of them will be shut down by the Patriot systems and many other systems. And finally, their ground troops were wasted last year. They mobilized more men, but they are in lack of discipline, morale, so this war is total humiliation for the Russian army. They thought that they would take Ukraine just in 3 days, but now they have to secure their own lands. The Chinese representative Li Hui went to Ukraine, to some of the European countries and to Moscow. His idea was to propel the Chinese peaceful plan. According to it, the Western countries should stop supplying weaponry to Ukraine, which is nonsense. This peaceful plan erupted just after Russia started to lose the ground. China is very concerned about it because they want to keep Putin in power because it's their ally, or it's better to say the slave country. With democratic Russia or with formatted Russia, which may collapse into many of the countries, this situation could be catastrophic for China. We know that nowadays Russia is the enemy for democracy, but China could be even bigger enemy. China wants Russia to win and they support the Russian economy, but they still afraid to send the military help. It is still very surprising for me, but some of the European politicians want to support this autocracy, or maybe their autocracy themselves. Like for example Hungary, they say that it's necessary to prevent the counteroffensive of Ukrainian armed forces, because it will only lead for new victims from Ukraine, but not from Russia. Before Ukraine launches the counterattack, we must do everything in our power to achieve ceasefire and start peace talks. Actually, President Zelensky proposed the peace talks in the first 2 weeks that the war had started. What Putin said that he doesn't want to talk. And after he lost the vast part of his army in Ukraine, Zelensky doesn't want to talk. Because why should we trade our own land and our own people for some sort of the talks? Even after the ceasefire, Russia will stay Russia, Putin will stay Putin, he will try again to take Ukraine under his control. It is just pointless to speak with Putin, and Zelensky told about it. He's right. My friends, don't forget to press the like to this video and please subscribe for the ground news. You may find the link in the video description just below. This is the awesome resource that I constantly use for my videos. I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are and have a great time.